Hello, good evening, and welcome to this episode of the Art of the Storyteller. It's going to be a bit of a mixed bag today. I am going to talk about obviously matters of writing and involved with it, but I'm also going to talk about other things that one cannot avoid in these current times. We're currently approaching the 60th day of excuse me, I missed it. Damn we're currently nearing the 60th day of the COVID confinement. We are also seeing the world behaving in some very odd ways, and we're seeing some very strange things. And obviously, I wanted to touch over on some of those strange things and how things are happening because it's revealing a lot about the world for something or somebody such as us, the writer's point of view, to see here, because we're seeing a lot about the nature of human nature itself here. And as you know, the Chronicles of Enoch is something that is really deeply a study of human nature itself to some degree, or at least that's the underlying theme of it altogether. As I've mentioned, I'm here and we're descaling, well, we're de escalating, should I say, what we call a state of emergency. The children are allowed to go out, but we've chosen to stand back and wait. Because to be honest, our girls at their age, all they're interested in doing if they go outside is going straight to the park, and unfortunately, the parks are not open. And plus, we have people, shall we say, being given their liberty, being a little incautious in exercising said liberty and not paying attention to others around them. And obviously, my prime responsibility in this world at this moment in time is to ensure the well-being of those little girls. And with something like this, it's not something I can guarantee. But we do what we'd have to do. You know, it's funny, I've had many discussions about this. This whole thing of staying at home and not going outside and everything like that. It's a challenge. It's difficult. But it's nowhere near as hard as some people are making it out to be honest. I actually find this fairly easy though. In all honesty, I'm of a generation where we seem to be well equipped for this because let's be honest, it's not because of how I grew up to some degree, because I'm of a generation where we grew up outside. Our parents working, and over the weekends when our parents were not working, they were busy doing all the stuff around the house they couldn't do during the week while they were working. So we grew up outside. We, during our time off on our holidays, spent most of our time in the street with our friends, inventing things to play with. It was only a little bit later on that people started to become more home isolated as youths, as it were. But I spent the vast majority of my formative years out on the streets playing, even as a teenager. It was out on the streets hanging around in small groups, being disapproved of by older people. But you know how it is. But basically, that was how it was. But I think something about the values my generation was taught by their parents made us, I don't know whether it's tougher or more adaptable. I honestly couldn't say, but I'm not going to touch on that right now. I'm not going to add petrol to that particular fire because that may well get me into trouble. This whole Generation X, Generation Z, Generation, I forget the Zoomers, the early Generation X, and blah 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 blah. It's confusing, and I don't want to get into any fights with any millennials who may listen to my video. Because personally, I've got nothing against you guys. You guys do things your way, I do things my way. We're just a bit different. That's all it is, really. Nobody is superior to anyone else just because of a particular attitude or a particular way they deal with things. I have my way, you have yours. That's the nature of human nature, pretty much. But that does segue very neatly into what I wanted to touch about because the thing I'm watching more through social media, through the news, through television, through a number of different sources, is the rise of the conspiracy theory once again. Now, I'm intending to be making a living out of conspiracy theories because one of my favorite characters in the Chronicles of Enoch Asmodeus is the conspiracy theory given shape. He basically spends a great deal of his time manufacturing, managing, manipulating, disseminating, and dropping little hints to get people fighting over conspiracy theories. Now, as you know, conspiracy theories are an interesting phenomenon in this particular time in which we live. They're common, they're popular, and they are self-sustaining. Excuse me, I'm getting a bit of a dry now. They are self-sustaining because what does a conspiracy theory need in order to exist? Well, first of all, there has to be something we cannot explain. There has to be a fear. There has to be an absence of evidence, and there has to be an audience, and also a target. But they are mutually exclusive. Now, to begin with, there's always going to be things in this world we do not understand. And this is where things start to get interesting, in my opinion. Because let's say thousands upon thousands of years ago, when humanity was, shall we say, less advanced than it is today, we came up with an idea to explain those things which we could not understand. We had things such as famines, such as failures of crops, mortality of children, diseases, and everything like that. We decided, rather than this just being what the hell, it happens, nothing we can do about it, we decided that it must be some supernatural being who was not only responsible for this, but also could be appealed to prevent it from happening to us. That obviously, if we did the right things to placate and satisfy this being, then these things would not happen to us. And we used them as an explanation for things that we could not understand. Since things have changed and developed, we've learned that these things actually have perfectly natural explanations, that they happen, and there are other ways, at least in some of them, things like earthquakes and volcanic eruptions and tidal waves and terrible weather. To a degree, there's really nothing we can do about them, but famine, lack of food, and all that sort of thing, we've learned to help people prevent those. Child mortality, we have medicine to help to prevent that. Certain diseases we've almost eradicated from the face of the earth. Admittedly, now we're in the grips of one which we have no clue about, but I'll get back to that in a moment. Now, you may actually see that does link and segue very neatly into the element of fear that I mentioned. And then, because if people fear something, they don't want to admit they're afraid of it, they're going to try and identify a way to control it, which is by placating this certain deity. Then, through that fear, it leads them to not only fear that which opposes their ability to control things, their God or whoever it is, but also those people who believe in something different to them, because then you see the religion side of things develops from people thinking if they're not doing certain things that their God likes, then they will be punished by their God. Therefore, people who don't believe in their God will be punished for not following the strictures of their God, and by extension, if they do not punish those people for living ungodly lives, then they too will be punished. Fear links into that, and then of course we're saying there's a target, there's an audience. The audience is the people who want their lives to be better controlled. The target is people who don't believe what they do, or key figures who may be doing something of which the now priests of that religion disagree with. Now, that was a pretty much overflying, not fully coherent, shall we say, explanation. But you guys know what I'm talking about, and that's what I'm coming up to. In this increasingly secular age, where superstitions, the control of religion over our everyday lives, and so on and so forth, religion as a personal choice rather than an obligation, then it was a lot different hundreds of years ago. Hundreds of years ago, you had to do what those in charge of the religion told you, otherwise things would go rapidly badly for you. These days, you're not likely to be put to death for not following the strictures of certain religions, except in some countries. But let's not talk about those right now. Instead, sorry, there's a smut on my screen, which is there we go. It's gone. The girls love to decorate my computer for me. But anyway, these days we're not going to be punished for not following the strictures of a religion, but we can still be reviled by those that do. And as you've seen, it's quite a common thing in parts of America right now for those who follow a certain interpretation of Christianity to revile, hate, and throw scorn upon those who do not. But I'm not going to get into that too deeply at this moment in time either. I'm talking about the fact that those of you who've been paying attention may indeed notice that there's a lot of similarity between conspiracy theories and religions. An awful, awful lot. In religion, faith in the existence of your deity in the complete absence of evidence. Conspiracy theory, belief that this is going on, these people are doing that, regardless of the fact that there's no evidence because they've hid it from you. Fear of the consequences of letting them get away with it. And finally, there's an audience, there's people to listen to that you feel like you're in the know. Because if you've noticed, one thing about adherents of many different religions is that they feel superior to other people who are not adherents of that religion because they know the truth and those people are going to hell. It's the same with conspiracy theories. You'll see the same thing, that people who are convinced this conspiracy theory is fact feel superior to those who disagree with them. They feel that they've been enlightened and let in on the truth. And that's the thing I'm trying to get to. Conspiracy theories are as big a pile of shite as the dogmas and strictures and rules of many religions are. I'm not saying there is no God. I'm not saying there is no spiritual being who may or may not have created everything. Gosh, I'm writing a book that that assumes the existence of that being and shows that it's a possibility. But I'm saying the man-made bullshit of religion, the man-made structure of rules and dogma and a way of life you have to follow and things that no immortal being seems to, in my opinion, would be bothered about. That's the problem, and conspiracy theories are equal to them. And they're equally as harmful. Because let's touch on this. The conspiracy theories that are predominating at the moment are that this whole thing of COVID-19 is a complete and utter invented fake meant to remove a certain individual from a certain large white Greco-Roman style house in Washington, D.C. in the United States of America. Now, I personally don't like the man from what I've seen, but obviously I don't know much about him. I just know what is publicly available about him. I've never met him in person. He could possibly be a nice guy in private. Who knows? We really don't know. All we know about is the public persona of people that we see in media these days. That's another warning I can give you. The media is there to make money. Doesn't matter which side of the political spectrum they fall on. Their job is to get people to pay attention to their output and have people play their game and make their money. Of course, it's not always going to be like that, but for the most part it is. Conspiracy theories are the same. But what I'm saying is I don't think me personally would be prepared to spend this time indoors, have my family go through these difficulties, these changes and everything, in order to remove a man from an office I could not vote for and couldn't care less about. It's just, that's just my opinion. I don't think there's any dark, shadowy organization that would invent a disease just to remove one politician from one country and attempt to take away the rights of one group of people in the world and not the rest of them. Just my opinion. And also, what I always say is if there is a group of people who exist with the sole purpose of taking over the world and running everything, surely they'd have managed it by now. They've been in existence, so we are told, for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Are they Bond villains? Are they the villains from cartoons of our youth where they're really crap and they're a totally inept superhero can defeat them? Yes, I'm talking about Inspector Gadget and various others. We're talking about these all-powerful, all-rich, all-influencing groups of individuals or small collection of individuals who seem to be utterly incapable of actually achieving their primary goal. Now, like the Bond villains, a Bond villain has this incredible technology, great plan, everything together, but somehow one man with an attitude and a gun and a bit of determination can undo all of that in less than 2 hours, which is pretty impressive, and destroy the base and everything like that and kill the bad guy. I don't think it'd be like that in the real world, but still. There we go. I'm a writer. I like inventing things, so I'll go with that. At the end of the day, the whole thing of conspiracy, that this, that, and the other is there to try and undo everything. Let's just be honest. If it were true, us demonstrating about it, us going out and complaining about certain politicians, if these people are so powerful and so much in control, it's not going to change a damn thing. Because if us demonstrating in the past hasn't eliminated the threat of these people already, nothing we do is gonna, because they're running the world. So what's a group of people going to do about it? Are they going to say, "Oh no, people don't like us. Run away. Let's go to the moon where we'll be safe"? No. Let's give up this world dominating because people disapprove of it. Now, I'm not saying fighting for your rights or standing up for what you believe in is wrong. It isn't. But opposing something which may well be for your good. And I know you're saying that's what they'll say, isn't it? They'll say it's for our good. Let's just be honest. In my opinion, this pandemic is as real could be. It exists because however many thousands of people here in Spain have died of it, they're gone. They're dead. They didn't just pretend to die or get silenced and killed by complicit doctors and nurses. They're dead. And they are mourned and their passing is regretted. But they didn't choose to die in order to provide political ammunition or the ability for someone to take over the world and so on and so forth. This pandemic is real. There's no question about that. The thing that people seem to ignore, and when we're coming into the whole politics of COVID at the moment, this is something I like to talk about. There's no and or scenario. There's no if scenario. Basically, people are saying that the politicians need to prevent this from happening, or we're losing our ability to make an income, we can't go to work and that sort of thing. It's like this is unavoidable, because if they had not have carried out the practice of sheltering in place, staying at home, all that sort of thing, there's a good chance you would have lost your ability to go to work anyway, whether you wanted to or not. In fact, there's a very good chance there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who lost their ability to do anything at all. And you may have been amongst them. Look at it that way. This is a terrible, terrible situation, and we have some governments, some people in influence, who are doing the damn best that they can to try and mitigate the effects of something which we cannot control. We are facing a tidal wave, and we are here with cups trying to turn the tidal wave back. There's no question that something is out there that is dangerous, it is deadly. We don't quite know how dangerous, how deadly, how communicable, how transmissible, and how many of us would be dead if the confinement hadn't have happened. But the fact of the matter is it has, and we remain alive to complain about it. It's a good thing, surely. Surely, if they wanted to control us and take away our liberties, there'd be better ways of bloody doing it. Come on, let's think about it. But again, I'm rambling. And I'm going to connect back to the idea of writing. I'm going to keep this one fairly short this week because I can see, because of some distractions I'm having at home and it being later in the day than I intended to be doing this, that I need to keep this one short. But not to worry. What can we do? I personally believe that conspiracy theories are, let's just say, metafiction of the world. Yes, of course, there are going to be things going on that they do not want us to know about. There are going to be things happening that are secret, things that are kept in the dark, things that are kept quiet. Of course there are. There's no doubt about that. But my personal belief is that if there is some elite, powerful organization keeping secrets and doing things in the dark, we are never going to hear about them. We're never going to be able to find out. And they're not going to let a YouTuber find out the real truth and tell everyone about it. Let's be honest, if there really was some great all-powerful organization out there running the world and doing clandestine things to control it, some guy in a basement or in a little house somewhere with a computer and a YouTube account would suddenly find their ability to transmit that information very quickly, quietly, and discreetly removed from them. If they were that powerful and that controlling, this video, which I am recording now, wouldn't get out there. It would be stopped. If I was anywhere near close to the truth of the way the world is really going, I would suddenly have the ability to do so removed from me. Or someone would come around and have a chat with me and explain the way the world runs. That sort of thing. So that's what I'm trying to say. Someone who has a shocking, terrifying, terrible truth that everyone's trying to hide, and they've been working for hundreds of years and spending billions of dollars in trying to stop. If there was a person like you or me who could undo all of that work on them, they would make sure we didn't. So that's what I'm telling you. If a conspiracy theory is out there, you can find out about it, you can comment on it, it's not real. Because these nebulous people out there who control everything, wouldn't let it get out. Because they wouldn't allow anything to exist that would be a direct threat to the power they supposedly have. And my personal opinion is they don't exist, and they never have. They are just a more modern way of explaining, again, something we do not understand, feel powerless against, and wish we could change. So we're exercising our conspiracy theory religion, appealing to those who claim to be in opposition of this they, to help us feel like we've got a little bit of power. And that is an insight into something very useful in fiction, in my personal opinion, because we, as a writer, we manipulate the feelings of our audience. We know the beginning, the end, the middle, and everything that happens in our story. And what we try and do is have the audience come along with us by making them feel certain things, making them experience certain scenarios, making them develop certain feelings. Sorry, I'm just getting comfy. Develop certain feelings and beliefs and interests about our characters, bring them along in our story to help try and teach them something and bring and take them somewhere. We may even use these manipulative skills to try and, as we say where I come from, send them down the garden path. As in, use the idea, the whole thing of a twist in the story to make them believe this is how it's going to go when in fact it goes in a different direction. Again, we're using this form of manipulation to try and make them enjoy the story more. It's not for anything nefarious or bad. It's just so that when they get to the end of the story, they'll enjoy it more. And also because it entertains us, let's be fair. That we chuckle when we write a twist and know how people will be tricked. But it's also, we're not doing it for a bad reason. We're doing it because it's part of what we do. And that's what I'm trying to say. We can use, and I've studied it extensively, the manipulation of the populace by various ways, means, and methods to understand how manipulation works. And I become, since I started writing, especially since I started developing the character of Asmodeus, who is the master of manipulators, he could manipulate me into next week without me even being aware that I'd spoken to him, probably, if he were real. But I've become a lot more cynical and believe and doubt a lot more than I used to, because I've come to see how manipulation works and how easy it is to achieve. I've practiced it. I've released a couple of fake stories and conspiracy theories out there to see what would happen, just to see whether they do self-sustain, self-propagate, and grow like a virus out there, and they do. It's kind of cool, and I challenge you to spot which ones they are. They're out there, I can tell you that much. But what I'm trying to say is, I have become more cynical, doubting, and I challenge and question a lot more than I used to do. And that's not only the development of me as a person, but me as a writer as well, because I think that helps me develop a more believable form of writing as well. Because I can I can braid, I can weave that into my story, so that I have other people do that too. I can help guide them along the path of them themselves, having some doubts here and there as well. And you have to think about that as a writer. Not only do we have to, not only do we have to put ourselves in the shoes of our characters and those they are affected and deal with, we also have to put ourselves in the shoes of our audience. And remember, we understand what's going on because we created it. It is our job, and the thing we have to learn and develop as a writer, to help our audience understand it too. Because we can write a great story, but it will not resonate, it will not communicate, and it will not be as easily understood by somebody who did not invent this thing, who has not lived it inside of their head. And the skill of a writer is to develop characters, develop storylines, develop scenarios, and so forth, to help the person experience that and learn the lesson we are trying to teach, to understand our story better and to become involved and immersed in it. And that's the hard part in our excuse me, indeed, very dry throat. I think it's a change in the weather. Excuse me, I'm not getting out as often as I should do. I don't have the coronavirus, I promise. I'll put my mask on next week. I'll do that for you guys. It's our job to help to introduce people, to guide people, and to help share with them the universe that we want to create. and that is the hard part. And I am going to touch on that next week because I do have to end this fairly shortly. I'm getting a few calls I have to answer and a couple of other things that are going on. So I thank you again for your time and your patience. I apologize this has not been as coherent and organized an art of the storyteller than as I normally do, but I'm putting an episode out there. So you guys enjoy it. Feel free to comment. Feel free to tell me how awful it was this time around. Either way, you guys take care. Thanks for joining the Art of the Storyteller. Goodbye.